We're on the line with Tim Linnefelt from Seminoles.com, where he is senior writer with a wealth of experience there covering Florida State athletics. All right, we'll break it down based on what's happened in the last month. Before I dive into anything specific, you may have a different perspective in regards to what stood out to you, what players seem to be breakout players potentially for 2019. What are your own personal storylines that may be a little bit different than everybody else's?
Well, I think that I don't know what everybody else's are, but I would suspect we're probably pretty aligned in that getting the offense going for Florida State, I think, is probably their most important thing. And obviously, they did go 5-7 last year. Well, typically that means you probably didn't score enough points, and they didn't. It wasn't like they were losing shootouts. I mean, it was an offense that I think had a hard time getting in gear a lot of the time. And Willie Taggart came in and wanted to run a hurry up, no huddle. You go as fast as possible, which is really common in college football these days, but it's something that Florida State hadn't had to do. They ran a pro-style offense under Jimbo Fisher, and so you had a bunch of players who were used to doing that, and a lot of them, they were recruited to do that. So now you got a new coaching staff that comes in to install a new offensive system, and everybody was on board with wanting to do it. But man, that takes time. It takes it's a difficult transition at times, and I think it showed itself to be a difficult transition. It's particularly seeing guys, the speed with which you have to finish a play, get back to the line of scrimmage, get lined up properly, have everybody in sync. I mean, they had a hard time with that, pre-snap penalties, procedural penalties, that sort of thing, things that would get them out of rhythm, get them out of sync. And then all of a sudden, for that type of offense that thrives on rhythm and being in sync, it just kills you. So I think they had a really hard time with that. So fast forward a few months, and I think getting that under control in the spring was a huge priority. And I think it's hard to say until August, but based on what you could tell, guys looked a lot more comfortable in it. I think part of that probably comes from just most of them having extra time in the system. Your new guys were recruited by the current staff, so maybe they have a little bit more familiarity with that type of offense as well. So that helps. And then also, I think, quite frankly, I think they have 3 new coaches on the offensive staff, and I don't think it would be totally out of line to say that you probably upgraded all 3 positions. Kendall Briles, of course, comes from a background at Baylor and Florida Atlantic and Houston. And if you watched Houston last year, you saw what kind of offense they ran and the kind of success that they had with it. So you want to replicate that there. He brought his offensive line coach with him. Randy Clements is a guy who he's known. I think Randy Clements said he's known Kendall Briles since he was a little kid. And something that I hadn't really considered until I heard the coaches talk about it was how important it is to have a relationship and with your offensive coordinator and your offensive line coach, how important it is for those guys to be in sync, and how that kind of lays the foundation for your offense for those guys to sort of be in lockstep. Well, Florida State didn't have that last year. Their offensive line coach and their offensive coordinator were both gone now, came from completely different parts of the country and different staffs, and they had met each other their first day of work at Florida State. So that didn't happen. And then you bring in our wide receivers coach, who Florida State fans are familiar with, and Ron Dugans, who won a national championship here as a player, has been around, had worked with Willie Taggart previously, had also coached at Louisville and Miami and some other places. So he's, I think a lot of folks consider a rising star in the profession. And I think those guys seem to be working really well. Kendall Briles and Randy Clements work well together, and Ron Dugans, as best we can tell on those practice fields, has been a good complement for that as well. So I think when you factor in guys being a little more comfortable in the system, just having been in it for a long time, and then coaches who know each other and know that system a little bit better, you like to think it adds up to some positive results. And it looked that way on Saturday during the spring game. And look, I understand, there's always the caveat if the offense is moving the ball really well in a spring game, does that mean the offense is good or is the defense not good? Well, the truth is, man, I don't know how to answer that, but I can tell you that from my eyes, I think the offense looked like it had made some positive strides.